welcome back to the first ever Poddy podcast. Today, your host is Poppy, me, and our co-host today is my famous father, Gwyn.
Not really famous, but thanks.
Today we're going to be looking at 3 war films and analysing and dissecting them. The first 3 films of this, series is
Dunkirk.
It's for 1917.
All Quiet on the Western Front.
But before we get into dissecting it all, could you go down to our website, which is linked below, and suggest movies that we should dissect and the genres you would like and are interested and would like to listen to?
Okay, so the first thing we need to do is look at the storylines of each of these 3 classic movies. Pops, can you just first of all tell me a little bit about Dunkirk and its storyline?
Dunkirk has many point of views of the same kind of war, where it goes through, the people in the boats, the war soldiers on the stranded on this beach, the higher ups, the fighter jets, the opposite side even, land on sea, and it gives you many point of views to look at. It's very intriguing in a movie.
Absolutely. What about 1917?
For 1917, the movie starts off with 2 people, one of which is emotionally connected to people that are going to be put, on a suicide mission, and they're tasked with the challenge of going through tough circumstances and conditions and difficult emotional states as well to get to the end. But by the end, the brother of one of the soldiers going into this situation unfortunately dies, and the last one goes through this very tough, challenging, life-threatening mission, which is and has a very cinematic greatness at the end.
That's brilliant, Pops. I'm sorry if she gave a bit of a spoiler there in terms of the guy dying.
We don't talk about the tears over cinema.
No, we're not ever going to talk about the fact that your grown-ass dad cried in the cinema. And finally, very swiftly moving on, if we could talk about All Quiet on the Western Front, which was only released last year.
All Quiet on the Western Front is a German movie, but Netflix, so you can have subtitles and dubbed over voices. But it starts off, it has a different point of view of war itself. It can be very biased looking at it from the right side perspective of this war. It's from the German side, where these young boys still in school, forced, manipulated, moulded to these people that are cold shells of who they were. And it takes us through a journey of, 4 people, 4 friends, but they all, spoiler, they all die, but they focus really only on one kind of character, and the other characters are merely just their friends rather than having individual storylines themselves.
I guess that's one of the key things about the film, that, they're on the opposition as far as us Brits are concerned, but war's horrible for both sides, and it ultimately isn't the soldiers that chose to be there, it's people in charge that chose to be there.
Yeah.
Okay then, Pops, let's talk about the direction of each of those 3 films. The 3 very famous directors that took charge of each of these films, they've all got their very own unique style. First one, let's go with Dunkirk if we can.
He's done very famous movies such as Tenet, Interstellar, and most famously the trilogy of the Batman series.
And the Dark Knight one, so.
Oh yeah.
So he's got his own unique style. Tell us.
Definitely, it's the most kind of cinematic, and they have a storyline, but you see it more visually than audio-wise. I would often, you see much with the actions, and particularly the relying too much on the acting skills that he combines them beautifully together to mash up into a very emotional movies.
They say he's a perfectionist. Do you see that in his work?
Totally. I don't think they've ever spotted anything, anything off about a movie or incorrect or factual.
Oh, in terms of continuity, go over to see if they can find fault with his work.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's done that. But with most famous directors, they've had a little slip up in in their movie.
And in terms of how he's directed this particular film, Dunkirk, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Has taken what some might think is an unfathomable idea of lots and lots of different point of views. You think about it, even on the same beach, there's 4 point of views, 5 point of views. The plane, it's very hard with all the different boats as well. different point of views. It's really hard to get that and show emotion in a movie when there's so many storylines for a viewer to keep up with, but he just does it so seamlessly.
And what about the director of 1917?
Sam Mendes.
Sam Mendes' directing style is very immersive for the viewer itself, with the whole taking risks and advantages of, one shot long. He did it for the first 10 minutes of Spectre.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
First 10 minutes of Spectre he did that for, and then for 1917 he had to up it one with the whole 2 hours, the viewer only seeing one shot, theoretically, of course, had to have cuts, but...
I think that's it. In Spectre, he did 10 minutes, which the 10 minutes he's most proud of in any sort of movie making that he'd done. And then he wanted to take it through to 1917, and the whole thing feels continuous, even though it's patently, obviously, it's not continuous. The way they cut and edit it, it still feels like one flowing masterpiece throughout the 2 hours runtime. Pops, can you just tell us a little bit about All Quiet on the Western Front? And the director,
Edward Berger,
for that, and his directing style within that film.
Well, I think, because he's only 25, actually, the director himself.
Oh, I see, I didn't know that.
And so a couple of years ago he came out with a docu-series that got very successful. It was with Netflix. But this was like the second, first ever movie, big, and he managed to, score it with Netflix. And he's done actually a very, very well, good job of it, immersing the viewer and, just telling a story from the opposite side, and even getting, obviously it's done in German, but even getting, British people like me to watch it and, read the subtitles and really listen to the dubbed over voices, and it still manages to get emotions and cinematic greatness across, even though it's foreign.
I think that's it. I think any director who records a film that's not in English language means they're cutting out pretty much half the market for the film. So it means people in Britain, America, and all the other English-speaking countries across the world simply won't watch it. So for him to have actually brought it to a level where everyone across the world is watching it and talking about it, is quite a thing. Particularly bearing in mind the Germans weren't exactly massively popular in the First and Second World War, but he's been able to extract a fair bit of emotion, and you feel an awful lot of empathy for the main protagonist in that film.
Okay, for our next point to make is the cinematography in each of the movies. I think we'll start off with Dunkirk first, where they used IMXs to show, POV shots where the viewer subconsciously or even consciously puts themselves in the soldiers, corporal, captains, the pilots, the sailors' position, or even the nurses' position, and it really adds that emotional value to the movie.
Isn't that the case with a lot of war films? The very best war films are the ones that puts you in the very boots of each of the recruits or whatever person it is within the film. If they can somehow get it from that perspective, that's when you get the empathy, and that's when you, as a viewer, you feel that you're in the trench with them.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, you could argue that all three